to another episode of Cricket Fables. Very pleased to be joined by my friend Ali Martin of The Guardian and Observer. How are you, my friend?
I'm very good. I'm very good. I'm glad to have caught up with a bit of sleep after some very early starts for that Test match.
4 o'clock in the morning, something like that for you?
4 a.m. every day, yeah.
Yeah, we were doing that with the Australia series, so we can understand what you're going through. We did that with the Australia
well, it's
series.
Good. It's good that,
yeah.
Yeah, it's good that the extra effort that we go to is rewarded.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's begin with this, Ali. Then, if honestly, tell us, would you have put money on England winning this last Test?
Possibly just after the coin had landed on the ground, potentially, yeah. But I think, going into the series, I said on another podcast actually that I think that were England just to win one Test match out of the 4, that would be an incredible achievement and a pretty much a successful tour. Having won the first one now, they've now set the standard, and you just wonder where it's going to go from here. It would be hugely disappointing if they were to lose the series from here. But actually, if you just take it in isolation, I think that game probably goes down as one of England's greatest away wins, actually. And I'm not the only one to say it. The newspapers in the UK this morning are filled with other great games that it potentially compares to, etc. And this one is right up there, really.
Absolutely. Just speaking about the reaction in England and the general sporting media, how do they view the pitch? Do you think England would be also wary of, look, in case the toss doesn't go the way it should in the second match, would they then be worrying about, what if it happens to us as well?
It's interesting. I think there were genuine fears before the series that if India went very flat with the pitches, that we could see some pretty big scores being shipped by their bowling attack. It obviously helps when they've stuck 500, nearly 600 on the board. That obviously helps the bowlers a lot. But I as much as this win was about Joe Root's, epic 218, this incredible start to the year he's had, and this sort of new ruthless streak that he's got to his own batting, I think as much as that will have pleased him, I think the fact taking 20 wickets on that surface, with a bowling attack which is, it's got one of the greats of the game in it. Let's be honest. So it is, it's not. They're not no hopers, but it's in those conditions. I think pieced together the 4 frontline bowlers managed to chip in at some point of the game to pull together the 20 wickets. I think that collective performance and also some incredible catching by England as well. I think that was it's not often you see all 10 catches held in an innings, for all 10 wickets. So I think that's a real feather in their cap as well. The fielding coach isn't on tour yet. He doesn't get there till the 3rd Test. So I'd almost be tempted to ring him up and say, stay away, because we're onto they're onto a good thing here. But, I think, as I say, as much as Root's own form will have impressed him, and I think he'll be very pleased with Dom Sibley making runs as well from the top of the order, because he had a bit of a torrid time in Sri Lanka to start off with, and he has slowly found a method for his game in the subcontinent. I think all those factors pulled together would give him just as much satisfaction as, marking his own 100th Test match with that epic innings himself.
Mm-hmm. Ali, why is it that the Queen is not awarding Jimmy Anderson, OBE, MBE, possibly Duke Duck already? Come on. The man deserves it and more.
I'm pretty sure he's got I think he's got an MBE already, but it's funny you should say that. There was a story in the Sunday Times just after New Year's saying that the committee that decides these things had decided to hold off on giving Jimmy a knighthood because they want to wait till he's retired so he doesn't have to go into the Ashes at the end of the year called Sir Jimmy Anderson and the sort of ribbing that would unfold from there. But unfortunately, I think the emergence of that story means that he's going to cop it whatever. So they might to him. It's probably going to come his way. Another thing that people are thinking about with Jimmy is in team sports in this country, individuals that stand out in team sports, there aren't many that compare with Jimmy Anderson. We probably had Johnny Wilkinson in the rugby. We've had some very talented footballers along the line, but Jimmy, to be doing what he's doing and to be doing what he's doing at his age, and my wife gets very annoyed whenever I mention that 38 is old, but I have to tell her that 38 is old for a cricketer. especially for a fast bowler. To see him doing what he's doing, I think the second wicket against the Rahane, the second of that incredible over, that took him past Courtney Walsh in terms of wickets after the age of 30, and that is an incredible feat. I mean, the fitness and the dedication that involves. There's been so many highs in Jimmy's career that he could have at any point, walked off stage with his position in the game completely secure as one of the greats of the English sport. But the absolute hunger inside him to keep going, to keep, proving that he's not going to be, that he can keep going as long as he wants to. And the age is just a number. I mean, hats off to him, really, because I'm 2 years older and I struggle to get out of bed every morning.
And also, a very interesting point you raised, because that second wicket I saw on Sky, that lowered, this is even before he got Rishabh Pant, that wicket of Rahane lowered his average in Asia on day 5 to some 17.3. I mean, a lot of people say, you look at him versus Steyn in these parts, but you just cannot write that man off at 38 and a half, can you?
No, absolutely. And it's interesting because I remember the 2012 series, which is obviously the last time India lost at home. From an English perspective, we were looking at it as, this is Swan. Obviously, it was Cook's runs at the top, Kevin Peterson's absolute genius, and the combination of Panesar and Swan who came together only for the second test, actually. I think they only played the one spinner in the first test. We became obsessed with how the spinners had done it. But at the end of the series, MS Dhoni said that he felt the difference between the two sides was Anderson. I think that took a few people by surprise here, but actually, you look at the numbers, it wasn't, he's probably not going to get fifers in these conditions all the time, very often at all, to be honest. I think the 6-3 he took in Sri Lanka was incredible bowling, but they're freak occurrences. What he does do, A, doesn't go for any runs, and B, chips in with vital wickets. And to watch him with the reverse swinging ball yesterday morning, just absolutely sensational stuff, wasn't it? To see. Especially, I think also the other thing is to see the stump cartwheeling out the ground twice in an over for a guy, who's probably, mid-80s, but he's still getting them through, isn't he?
Yeah. That then leads me to the next question, Ali, as to, with this whole rotation policy, do you think that England will play James Anderson in the next match, given how he's performed?
Well, that is a very good question because, the plan this winter, England have got 6 tests in the subcontinent. They've had 2 in Sri Lanka, 4 in India, and it looked like they were just going to alternate, one Broad and Anderson, 1 game each. He's given them a headache, hasn't he? But I think the other thing is, I think they'll be mindful of Stuart Broad's break being too long from bowling, because it will probably be, even if he does play the second test, it will be just about a month since his last appearance. But at the same time, I think they probably want Jimmy to be in that pink ball test, the 3rd test in Ahmedabad. Yeah. Under lights, because if you're going to get some lateral movement through the air, conventional swing, I think, and we don't know whether the pitch and the outfield will permit reverse swing, but if you're looking for conventional swing with the pink ball, you want Jimmy in that side, don't you? Possibly the pair of them will be in that team. We don't know, and maybe that's when Archer takes a breather. But they've got Ollie Stone, who's very quick, hasn't won many caps yet, but he's one of the quickest in the country. Chris Wokes, whose overseas record is not great, but actually his last couple of tests overseas have been pretty good, actually. And there's Curran and Mark Wood to come back into the squad for the 3rd and 4th test. There's a lot of competition in the seam bowling department, but Jimmy is causing them problems here because, how can you leave him out after that performance, especially a 5th day performance? Last summer, we were starting to wonder whether Jimmy was picking up, he was picking up his wickets in the first innings of test matches, and you start to wonder whether, because of his advancing years, whether over the course of a game his effectiveness went down. To see him doing it on a 5th day, again, that's that really has sort of given them a bit of a head scratcher for how they keep Broad and Anderson both sort of ticking over and going and get the most out of them. It's unrealistic to expect to get 4 tests out of each of them. Well, obviously 3 just now with Broad left for him, but how they keep those 2 going and also balance the other side of it. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing to watch an English seamer doing it in Chennai. But then we've only got to go back to 1985 to see Neil Foster picking up 11 in the Chennai Test. So maybe it's not that freakish.
England have someone of Chris Wokes' capabilities, who his name doesn't pop up when you sit down to write or talk about the first match of any series. Yes, but also there's the issue of the spinners. There's a lot of conjecture about whether they play 1 or 2 or 3. In the end, England went for Bess and Leach. Both of them had very, very contrasting innings. If you see, Bess was far better in the first innings.
Yeah.
Then he went for some runs. It was a very clear effort from Gill and Kohli to attack him and make sure that he doesn't settle. Do you think they'll go in with the same combination? Maybe someone like a Moeen steps in for some variety?
Well, I definitely think the structure that they've got with 2 seamers, 2 spinners, and the all-rounder in Ben Stokes is probably that's the template they'll want to stick with. Maybe the pink ball testings change a bit, but I think because of the heat in India, I think the volume of overs that you're going to probably have to get through because of the pitches, you are going to need 2 spinners. I think with Joe Root with so much on his shoulders, doesn't want to bowl himself too much. I think trying to turn himself into a second spinner wouldn't work. Bess is a real head scratcher. I mean, essentially it was his 4 wickets, and I know a couple of them were slightly chancy, but there was some lovely. I mean, the dismissal of Virat Kohli, that was a classic off spinner's dismissal.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Those 4 wickets in that Indian first innings blew the Test wide open because India could have batted on, made 500 themselves, and we could have been looking at a real stalemate of a Test match. Bess broke the game open, but bizarrely his ability to land the ball absolutely plummeted as over the course of the Test match. While Jack Leach, who got a bit of a pasting from Rishabh Pant, and that was quite a sensational bit of batting. He actually found a bit within himself to come back from that. I don't think he bowled that badly, actually. So I think, spinners, when you bowl that, when you're a slow bowler, you have to accept that there are times you are going to be hittable. And that was a pretty freakish display of batting from Rishabh Pant. And also a couple of them could have been caught in the deep. There was a couple that were only just over the boundary, out of the 5 6s that he hit. So it shows a pretty good temperament from Jack Leach just to, go with the flow on that one, accept it. And I think his figures after that point were about 6 for 100 in about 40 odd overs, which is a great return. Bess is such a head scratcher. You saw Jeetan Patel. I think he served up three full tosses to Virat Kohli. A guy that doesn't really need a second invitation at the best of times to absolutely thrash it to the boundary. And you could see Jeetan Patel, England's spin coach, just heading his head. It just shows actually really shows where Don Bess is at with his career. Jack Leach is a bit further down the line. He's a lot more grooved. He's the first choice spinner at Somerset. Don Bess didn't necessarily get into the Somerset team unless conditions were really in the favour for 2 spinners. He's since moved county to Yorkshire so that he can be a number 1 at a first-class team, which I think will help him a lot. But I think we've seen in that Test match, why they like him, because I think he's got incredible spirit and fight, a lot of secondary characteristics that are underrated. He's a handy number 8 as well. He chips in with runs. And he's got a pretty good attitude. He's a very good fielder as well. So I think they look at him as not that he's not the whole package, but they look at the whole package when selecting him to say, we accept that if you're the second spinner, that Jack Leach will probably, unless Pants at the crease, will probably hold up an end a bit better, and maybe you can attack a bit more with Bess. But he's so inconsistent. It's a bit of a head scratcher. Moeen Ali is a proven performer. Up to a point, he's got 181 Test wickets, which is, for an off spinner, especially in England, that's a pretty good return. But how does Moeen emerge back into Test cricket? It's been 18 months. His last Test was a bit of a nightmare. The previous 12 months were golden. He was the leading wicket taker in the world for the 12-month period leading up to that one Ashes Test where he had a bad game. I think Jimmy Anderson's injury in that game actually affected him a lot more. When he becomes one of 4 bowlers, it's harder for Moeen to hold up an end. He bowls more, I'd say he bowls more wicket-taking deliveries than Don Bess. But he's not going to hold an end like a Jack Leach. So it would be pretty crushing for Don Bess if they were to leave him out now. A similar comparison that's come to mind recently has been in the 10-11 Ashes, which is obviously a famous series that England won. I think after 2 Tests, Steve Finn was England's leading wicket taker, but he was England's leading wicket taker, but he wasn't holding an end. He wasn't controlling. And actually they made quite a calculated and pretty harsh call to whip him out and bring another seamer in, even though he was, the leading wicket taker at the time. I look at Bess and I wonder whether that's the way to go or whether that's going to be too crushing for a young guy. I don't know. He looked so drained by the end of it, by the end of that Test match. I guess it really comes down to these 3 days between Test matches. How does he come back? How's it coming out in the nets? Maybe some chats with Patel and Jack Leach as well. Probably Moeen's the kind of guy that will be very generous with his time as well. and he'll be trying to pump up Don Bess's tyres, even though they're possibly vying for the same spot. I suspect England will stick with for now, but they're also this whole rotation plan that they've got, this master plan that's sort of quite controversial, and sees Joss Butler of all people flying home now, which is just bizarre. Under this plan, Moeen is technically meant to be going home third and fourth test. So if that's the case, you know, do they want to have a look at him early to decide whether, you know, should we make him stay on for a bit longer? Because if he doesn't play in the next test, that might be it for the series, and it could be Bess and Leach through the whole series. So I don't know. They've got a real head scratcher there, because first innings, brilliant. Second innings.
You know, whoever is writing the scripts in cricket collectively needs to be given an Oscar right away, or at least get $1 million deal with Steven Spielberg, because it's been fantastic, right? We can't seem to be predicting anything right. No. And a script of Joe Root's 100th test match couldn't have been written any better. Double 100, a brilliant win in the test match. With that, I was reading your article, in fact, in The Guardian, where you said, you know, that 28 wins, test wins as a captain for Joe Root. He's equaled Michael Vaughan's record. So my question is, where would you rate Joe Root as a captain at the moment? I mean, he is on his way to being the greatest, one of the greatest there.
Yeah, and he's actually really changing opinions of his captaincy in the last sort of 6 months, really, because even you probably go back a year, and England, bear in mind this was England's 6th away win in succession, right? So they've actually found a formula to start winning away. Sri Lanka aren't the biggest challenge at the moment, but for an English side, it's not an easy place to go. They lost both tosses in Gaul. Teams, I think only one team had ever lost a toss and won in Gaul previously. So I think he's potentially now heading towards actual greatness with the captaincy, whereas 12 months ago we were looking at him thinking, last year was his first year in international cricket, he didn't score 100, which sets alarm bells ringing. You know, it's a guy that was averaging 50 plus before he took the captaincy, and those numbers were going down, and we were starting to think, is the captaincy affecting the batting? Do England need Joe Root the batsman more than they need Joe Root the captain? Could someone else do it? These were all legitimate questions going around, and also possibly a bit about Joe's character as well. He's very softly spoken. I mean, he's genuinely I've worked in this industry for sort of 10, 15 years. You come across a lot of players and a lot of average people at the time. Joe doesn't have an edge. There's no edge to him at all. He's actually the loveliest bloke you could meet. And it's quite disarming in a way, because you, at times, especially on England's last Ashes tour, you looked at him and thought, you know, where is the inner mongrel here? Where is the inner steel that is going to, and somehow he's found it without losing any of the soft side of him that makes him such a warm and generous character. But he's brought a real ruthlessness to his cricket, particularly his batting. But also, you look at him yesterday in the press conference, he was saying that, first of all, England, this can't be enough. We can't be happy with this win. We can't have got our win and then we go home. That's quite an impressive message to send out, to say this isn't enough. We've got to redouble our efforts here because India are going to come back stronger. He also had the sort of worldliness to look around and reference the recent win by West Indies in Bangladesh. Obviously, India winning and Australia, etc., etc. So it's not pure tunnel vision. He gets the wider game as well, and he gets what a win like that does for the wider sport, for Test cricket, which has only just come back onto terrestrial TV in the UK for the first time in 16 years as well. So these are all factors. I worried before that Test match that all the attention, all the interviews, and he's so generous with his time as well, he could decline a lot of these opportunities. He was appearing on breakfast TV over here. He was zooming in to extra press conferences, all these appearances, 100th Test, all these interviews. And I thought, I worried and thought, is this going to distract from him? But he's just taken in his stride. He's playing his cricket right now with the confidence of a guy who knows that he's an absolute purple patch, the absolute form of his life. And rather than fear that and worry about it and hunker down and go within himself, he's still able to bring the best of himself to pretty much all departments. And I think his captaincy has come a long way as well. So I think the combination of that, means that he's tracking in the direction where we are possibly going to start talking about him as one of our best ever.
Yeah. And just one more point on Root. I guess as a batsman, it's the main accusation leveled against him was that he just didn't convert enough of the 50s. You go back to the last Ashes, he got 5 50s but no 100. But then in New Zealand, a big innings, Sri Lanka, 2 big innings, and now, like you said, this is the purple patch. That surely does rub off in his character, in his leadership as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the England team. There's a lot of chat about the England team the Test team under Trevor Bayliss, who was obviously brought in to win that World Cup to completely reboot the one-day side. And I think a lot of the messages, not necessarily from Bayliss, but I think Bayliss was a coach that would let the players dictate the direction they wanted to go in. But I think during that time, because they were felt so emboldened by their one-day form and by being aggressive, I think a lot of that bled into the Test side. I think Joe in particular was probably victim of that. But once he got himself set and on 50, with some runs behind him, some time in the wicket behind him, he wanted to dominate. He wanted to take it to the opposition. What he's probably learned, I think it's from watching his peers in that top table of the best batsmen in the world. Williamson's recent form in particular, but also the way that Virat dominated in 2016 against England. And the way that Steve Smith has dominated the last 2 Ashes series, really, I mean, absolutely dominated. I think he looked at those and realised that what they were doing was not destroying teams, they just weren't getting out. They were absolutely over my dead body about their wicket, because they knew that if they were there for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours at the crease, the team's not going to lose, and that is what Joe has brought into himself. I think he's also done a lot of work with the analysts. He got the analysts to compile all his dismissals between 50 and 70, I believe, to see if he could find some patterns there. And I think also the conversion rate weighed heavy. I mean, we were always asking about it. It was on the front of, on the top of his mind a lot as well. And he admitted that those kind of thoughts became self-defeating, self-perpetuating, self-fulfilling. And I think for the first time in his England career as well, and it's partly because of the pandemic but that break that he had from the end of the English summer in September, there was a very short tour. He doesn't play in the IPL. There's a very short tour of South Africa where he didn't even play because they called off the one-day series. But I think it was about sort of 4 or 5 months where he had a chance to look at himself in the mirror a bit about that issue. He looks at his own fitness and he really recharged the batteries. And my God, he's hit 2021 in some form, hasn't he? So, a break the break served him really well.
Yeah, I just think, Ali, this bromance between Virat Kohli and Joe Root's just not helping India's cause. There has to be ruthlessness there as well. But yeah. It was nice to see. It was nice to see. And there was a bit of chat going on between them as well when Joe was batting. Joe Root was batting in the first innings, I remember. Virat Kohli was going up to him and they were chatting. And I said, what's going on?
Well, maybe that's maybe that's parenthood. Maybe this is the new. This is Virat 2.0. Lovely.
They probably had a chat about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Although I have to say though, I did notice that where was the signed shirt from the England team for the India team? I thought Nathan Lyon got one at the end of his 100th Test. Makes me wonder whether that wasn't just about celebrating his 100th Test match. But anyway, that's for another time, perhaps.
Lovely. Ali Martin, always a pleasure speaking to you, hearing from you, hearing your views, and reading you, of course. So thank you. We really appreciate you taking out time to speak to us.
No worries. Great to speak to you, and it's nice to be nice after an England win. But I'm more than happy to speak when the inevitable happens next Test.
We'll be in touch.
Thank you so much, Ali. And I've been wanting to say this to you. I love the background. It's a nice sunny day there.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
Well, we are covered in snow. It's a beautiful sunny day, but it's like Dharamshala out there. It's snowing everywhere. So
lovely.
Thank
you so much, Ali. We'll be in touch.
Great.
Thank you. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.